The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent, along with Addie Rich.
Howdy.
We are a podcast dedicated to giving a voice to the disability community. We do that by having those with a disability on to tell their stories, and the organizations that provide programs, services, and support to the community on to share what they do. And I am a polio survivor and walked on crutches and braces for a better part of 50 years. Then I transitioned into the wheelchair over the last 20 years. And you, Miss Addie?
Aren't you only like 30 years old? That's who you are in my head. So
your
math doesn't work. Your math doesn't work, sir. I'm Addie. I was born with cerebral palsy. I try to get around on my own volition, but use my walker most of the time, and I'm transitioning to my wheelchair.
Very nice. Very nice. It'll be your friend. So
it is.
Yeah. So you, I think last time we talked, you were getting ready to go check out your mountain cabin and or whatever you have.
Yeah, the best laid plans, I tell you. So talking about people being reliable, it's like 2 hours after the house sitter is supposed to be here and she's not here. So we had somebody we were supposed to meet on Friday night, which we couldn't meet because even if we drove up there, now it's the dead of dark. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Anyway,
and real quick, just to refresh people's memory, you have a, what would you call it? A trailer, camper trailer?
Yeah, I have an RV lot.
RV lot, yeah.
Blue Ridge.
And then you have your RV camp there. Yeah.
Yes. And so we were going to clean it out and pick up some stuff from up there and, kind of do the seasonal shift and whatever, right? So anyway, the person's supposed to be here and you and I were actually recording an episode and it's getting later and later. And I had a deadline as to when they had to be here because if we don't leave, we're going to miss the other people we're supposed to see. Anyways, so the person is like, oh, I had a medical emergency. They almost had to call an ambulance. Well, okay, I can be compassionate, but like, were you going to tell us at some point? Yeah. Anyway,
so did they still make it?
So
did they still come or no? Yeah.
They did at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
But we had basically told them never mind, and we moved it to this coming weekend because we'd already missed one half of the purpose. So I'm not going to go up there this weekend and the next weekend. That didn't make any sense. But
and if somebody's had a medical emergency, you don't want them to.
Oh, well, and that's why I was like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, take some time. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, it just turned out weird. And it turned out also that the girls' apartment had apparently flooded. So we let her stay in our basement being nice because nobody was down there. But it was just the most weird situation of my life. So never actually met her. She was in the basement for the weekend. And
so this isn't like a friend of yours that was going to babysit the house. This was
this was a house sitting service.
Oh. Were there critters involved? Were they going to watch?
We kept our own critters. Yeah, they were going to watch all our critters.
That's
what this house sitting service does.
Yeah. That's the important thing. The house doesn't need much sitting, really,
Right. The house doesn't do any tricks unless there's things we don't know about, right?
Yeah. Be reliable, folks. Gosh, that's one of those things.
Moral of the story.
Is it out of date? Is it not fashionable anymore to let people when you're not going to show up or anything?
Well, I mean, the weirdest thing was that she's like, basically, if you cancel the sit, you're costing me money because my apartment flooded. I'm thinking, that sounds like a personal problem. I'm trying to be accommodating to you.
Yeah.
By canceling the sit because you said you had a medical emergency. Now you're flipping it on us like it's, I don't know. Some people.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that. No, we did not go to the mountains.
All right. To be continued.
Yeah, right.
Just a busy week last week. It was every day I had 2 and 3 and 4 events, literally. And, just in zigzagging. It wasn't efficient use of my time or resources. I go one end of the county in the morning and then I had something in the other end of the county in like the afternoon. And then I had to go back to the other end of the county for the thing in the evening. But, you know.
Doug says yes to everything and he learns his lesson.
Right. But gas is only $5 a gallon. Who cares?
Yeah.
But, you know, but some good stuff. Yeah. We went to the Angel City Sports Adaptive Sports Fair. Angel City Sports is their name. The Adaptive Sports Fair was the name of the event.
It's what they do. Yeah.
It's what they do.
Got you.
Yeah. So that was awesome. Oh, gosh. I know his dad's name. And the co-founder, his last name is Freck. And Ezra, I believe, Freck. And he's two-time gold medalist. So it's a father and son, and they co-founded Angel City Sports. And yeah, they put together a great event. They do, you know, wheelchair football, tennis, basketball, bocce ball. I don't think they had rugby, which normally they do, and some other things at a park in Los Angeles. So good time. And Inland Empire Disability Collaborative was last week, and met some new people there. My list is growing for guests, you know, and
nice.
now I'm like telling people, well, it'll be April or May before we get you on.
Right.
But,
we'd love to have you, but take a number.
Yeah, which is a good thing. Definitely a good thing to have, right? So,
sure.
And, you know, and then like a bunch of other things. And Rolling Start has their wheelchair sport group. I went to the one for Victorville. I went, I think it fell when we were recording, so I jumped over there, and talked to them real quick and said hi. And then they've got a new one that they're starting at their San Bernardino location. So I'm going to go there this Thursday and do that. Thank you to Zemri Solis for coming on last week. That was as awesome as I thought it would be. Great story.
I was going to say, you rock it.
Yeah.
You rock it.
I can't wait to see what's next for him, too.
I know.
Because he's still young.
He's very young, and everybody we kind of sit with, it's like, this is such an awesome room to be in. It makes me, I don't feel old. That's the wrong way to say it, but I'm excited because they have a bunch of time left in their life in which they're like raring to go and have all these opportunities, and it's cool.
Yeah. Definitely for me, I am old. And, you know, I'm not afraid to observe that. But it's nice, too. I mean, this perspective is nice, too. I'm doing what I love. And I'm sure I've said it before. I loved what I did for a living, you know, my entire career. You know, I was in radio and was on the air and did production and all that. And I love doing that. So much so now that I have a little studio in one of the bedrooms in my house. And now I'm doing a podcast once a week. Because I love this. I love the interviewing people. I love putting it all together. And it keeps me young, I think, to a certain degree, learning new techniques. You know, there's not too many 70-year-olds that can do what I do in this technical realm, you know. You know, I have a long way to go, you know, kids, don't worry. But you know, I'm trying to educate myself and just the whole publishing a podcast. You know, I went to ChatGPT, and because you hear about producers and all these things on podcasts, I'm like, what? I do everything myself. There's bookers, there's all these titles. So I went to ChatGPT and I just asked it, what are all the responsibilities for putting together a podcast? And there's a list of like 10 different things. And there's 10 different people that work on a podcast. I'm an idiot. I do it all myself.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, you should see it. It shows you your versatility. You're a jack of all trades in the radio world.
But like I say, I love it. I love it. And it keeps me young, learning new things, you know.
Yeah.
So I dig that.
Awesome.
And, thank you for listening, too. I really appreciate, people listening and liking it. If you could subscribe wherever you listen, whether it's on Apple or YouTube. We have a lot of listeners on YouTube. And also Spotify and different ones. If we can grow the community by subscribing, that helps us kind of get out there and meet more people. Met some great people too at the Angel City Sports. A couple of people that I've run into at different events, but really had some time to sit and talk with them and get to know them a little better and all that this week. So looking forward. They're coming up. They'll definitely be guests. So we'll do that soon. Coming up today, we've got an interview with Lisa Cox, and if you are on Instagram, you may recognize that name. She's an influencer. She's from Australia and was in advertising, and it seems like there was a multitude of things that went on with her, and
Yes.
right. So we'll
Yeah. So she's had a very full life, and she's learned how to like pivot and blend her life together as her life has changed, and that's really cool.
Yeah. So she's taking, her life pre-disability and kind of retooling it to do what she wants to do with
mirroring
and
it
for
with her new experience.
Yeah, for the community with her skill set and all that. Very passionate about it. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back to hear all about Lisa's story here on Walk and Roll Live right after this word from Agar Professional Training.
At Agar Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Agar is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Agar Professional Training and witness the growth of your business.
From the Agar Professional Training Studios, you're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
In the digital dawn, voices unite. Walk and roll life, a guiding light. A platform vibrant, a beacon strong, for the disabled communities to belong. Shared narratives weave, stories.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to Walk and Roll Live. Today we have a guest. I started following her at least a year ago, maybe longer, on social media. And I know I reached out to her, and I think that as you get more of a following on social media, there are tools to kind of help you kind of throttle a little bit all the incoming comments and all of that. So sometimes, and I've learned this over the course of booking guests for the show, that if they don't respond, it doesn't mean they don't like you or anything. It's just, they're trying to keep their sanity. And so I don't know what was the kind of the final thing. I don't remember what at some, because I'm kind of buggy. I think I was probably tagging some of your entries and things like that. And I finally, you talked about coming on, and I'm like, great, let's do it. So we want to start with you just doing a self-introduction. So your name, we'll start with your name and where you're from and what your disability is.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. So my name is Lisa Cox. I'm in Brisbane in Australia, and some people don't know where on earth that is. So it's about an hour's north of Sydney. So a lot of people know where Sydney is. So if you're in a plane, an hour's north. So that's me. And my disability is visible and invisible. There are multiple. So I've been neurodivergent since birth. But in 2005, I had a stroke at the age of 24.
Ooh.
So Streptococcus A virus caused that. They don't know how I contracted that. Bloody bad luck with the specialists' words. So I spent 3 weeks in a coma, 2 months on life support, and over a year in hospital after that. My family was told, you might have to turn off life support if things don't improve, all the usual shit that unfortunately parents are told. And I'm here today, so it's my 20th anniversary today, actually.
Oh.
Coincidentally, so woo, big celebration on the podcast today.
Awesome.
But so that first year in hospital was fun times. Yeah, my left leg, all of my right toes, and none of my fingertips were amputated. My I lose track of what's
Sure, yeah.
what's happening. My heart was operated on twice. My far out right hip was replaced, and that's all of the, I suppose, physical and really obvious stuff. My body is covered in scars and missing pieces, but there's a ton of invisible scars and disabilities on my brain, so invisible disabilities that you can't see. And to be completely honest, they play a much bigger impact on my life than all the invisible stuff you can see. So people see a wheelchair and they go, oh, that's so impactful and that must be terrible, and all the crap that, you know, people think about visible disabilities and wheelchairs. But that's not my challenge. That doesn't stop me from getting around the world or the gym or wherever. It's all the invisible stuff. I'm over 25% blind. My speech has been affected. I have epilepsy. I'm terribly uncoordinated now, but there's a few other things going on as well, like PTSD and things like that. So that's me in a very large nutshell.
Yeah, but it all necessary. I think you now hold the record for longest description of the disability.
That's awesome, though.
so and I was going to say, we'll get into that later, but yes, we kind of want to unpack a bit of that. But I'd like to kind of get an idea of what you were like before all of this started. You know, your younger years.
Sure. I think I was fairly ordinary, sort of modest middle class upbringing, little Aussie white girl running around in the backyard in Australia. So didn't know at the time I was neurodivergent, just felt different, but didn't know why. But I had people close to me who had disabilities but didn't have physical disabilities. And, it was just I suppose when I say typical, no one has a normal or typical, everyone has an upbringing. But it was fairly stock standard. There was nothing revolutionary or anything about it. I had a really strong interest in social justice, even from a really young age. I never knew why, but now I know why. And that was me, just growing up in the suburbs here in Australia.
So you had started a career in communication, I guess you would say, right? You were in advertising?
I finished high school and went straight to uni and did 2 degrees in business communications and media, and then worked in advertising agencies for several years. So I was a copywriter, and what that means is I wrote ads. So I wrote the scripts for TV ads and radio ads, and made the words and the pictures for print ads. So that's a really basic explanation, I suppose.
Yeah.
And said, okay, this is what this is going to look like, and we'll have this guy walks in here and says this, and came up with all the creative concepts for it. And I absolutely loved my work.
Yeah.
And had all these grand plans of moving to New York and working there and living there, and that didn't eventuate because obviously the proverbial hip fan. And that first year in hospital and the years that followed, I'm like, there's this thing about disability representation, and I can combine my professional background in advertising with this whole
what we call pivot, right? You pivoted.
Yeah. I pivoted. Exactly right. So I'd been sort of finding visibility for my clients, their brands, their products and services for so many years. But I realized I could sort of tweak that a little bit and provide visibility to something far more important, which was visibility for disability. And so have been joining amazing advocates who are already doing this sort of work, but applying my advertising skills to that.
I have all these questions just popping into my head that I want to ask you. But first of all, so how much time did you have to take away from your career when the shit started to hit the fan, so to speak?
You mean how long did I spend in the hospital?
Yeah. I mean, did you have to spend time away from work?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Sorry, I assumed that, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she's going to work in a coma.
Yeah.
So when I was, I'm sorry, I've forgotten already, but
It's okay.
this is my memory. I can remember song lyrics from the 80s, but we'll forget what you said 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
So
No
no
apology necessary.
when I first had my stroke, I spent 3 weeks in a coma, 2 months on life support, and over a year in hospital the first time. So there was a good chunk of time that I spent away from advertising agencies. Then I went back to advertising agencies for a period and was like, this doesn't feel like a good fit for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And realized that instead of working in advertising agencies, I can work with them instead in more of a consultancy role and do the work I'm doing now.
Nice.
And so that's because I still love advertising and advertisers and the work they do. And yeah, even though it's I'm not necessarily a fan of the capitalist cycle and that sort of stuff. That's another conversation for another day. Changing social attitudes and public perceptions, that industry is so powerful, and why don't we use it to change the way society thinks about disability? It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but we have to start somewhere.
Right.
So, I mean, we do this already with things like gender roles and cultural diversity and things like that. So let's start including disability in that conversation, because over the years I've seen so many conversations about diversity in media, but it's only about culture and gender and things like that. And disability was missing from that conversation, even though we're the world's largest minority. And that was really disappointing to me.
At some point, I'm sure you know these statistics better than I, but just, the number of people who have a disability worldwide, and then the economic block that they represent. I mean, it's got to be very attractive to corporations.
That's great. It's about 20% globally. So country by country, that changes a little bit. In Australia, it's about 16%, and it was a little bit higher and a little bit lower. So it does change country to country, and that can depend on things like the healthcare system and how many people disclose and all sorts of things like that. But globally, places like the UN and the World Health Organization have said it's globally 20%.
Yeah.
And also globally, our what's it called? Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, I lost my word.
Take your time.
Yeah, you don't have to apologize.
The word I'm looking for, a global spending count. 18 trillion was the last statistic I heard this week, the 500, and that is people with a disability, including our friends, family, colleagues, supporters, all of us.
Gotcha.
So that's a massive market share. And if you put it to marketers and advertisers and people on board that way, it's not just the few of us, walking around in wheelchairs or wheeling around in wheelchairs. That's a huge market share, 18 trillion globally. Because, it's not just me going out for dinner looking for a wheelchair accessible restaurant. It's the 10 people who are with me, for example.
Right.
So there's a lot to be said about whether it's accessibility or something else, about why we need to include disability in our conversations.
Well, it's also development of products to help the industry, right, or to help our community just be able to be, have a more accessible life and a more independent life. Yeah. How do you address? Because Addie and I talk about this a lot. When you're depicting somebody in media, do you do it from a perspective of using them for sympathy, or they are just a kind of a regular part of a regular group going out to dinner. Say if you're depicting that, you don't highlight that person with a disability. They're just one of the group. Do you have that conversation with clients?
A really good question. That's also a question I get to clients. So I do workshops with clients, and they'll non-disabled people, and they've never done it before, and they sit there nervously, and they're looking at me with saucer eyes, like, shit, how do we do it? How do we do this disability thing? I'm like, don't worry, guys, it's okay, breathe.
Yeah.
And the way I explain it to them is we want to do it seamlessly and incidentally, because people with disabilities are seamless and incidental in our society. I will through the shopping centre, for example, not with a big beacon on my head saying, here I am. So we want people to be in advertising with disabilities in the same sorts of ways. So there perhaps are certain times and situations where there will need to be a certain, hey, there's someone here with a disability, but those examples aside, there have been some examples here in Australia where they have seamlessly included someone with a disability. Someone with a prosthetic limb has just walked through frame or walked through the shot. And it's just, I haven't seen it because my eyesight's terrible, but my husband's gone, hey, they've got a prosthetic limb. I didn't even notice. And he hardly noticed. And that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's just how you want it to be. So you hardly even notice, right? Because children are watching that, and adults too. But those children watch that year after year after year. And one of those children are going to grow up to be politicians and employers and decide who they employ, and perhaps decide what policies are going to be written for disabled people, and decide whether or not they'll employ disabled people.
Yeah.
So we want that inclusion to be seamless and consistent, not just once a year, or once every 4 years when the Paralympics are on.
Yes.
So basically, you're normalizing our existence, which sounds crazy.
That's a great word for it. Yeah, normalizing.
Yeah. So do you feel like in your position you come with a little more credibility when you're getting together with clients?
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
I certainly hope so. Because I've got 20 years of lived experience plus that agency side of it. I can see it from both sides. There's lots and lots of people in the disability community who have some really, really great lived experience, but having that agency side of things as well helps me see it from that other side of the coin. I mean, I can't speak as a lawyer or an engineer. I don't speak law. There's plenty of fields that I can't go into because I don't speak that language. So I let those people do that. I don't speak tech, for example. I know you and I had a conversation.
Yeah.
To recording. You can do all the tech stuff and you can go into that field and be great at it, but it's certainly not a field I can go into.
So do you have a team that you work with?
Not really. At the moment, it's just me. I do have an amazing VA who does help me with a few things. Yeah. But at the moment, I don't have a massive team like some people have. And that is one of the reasons why I started with really, really small projects like fashion, for example, because at the time I was like, well, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. What can I do? I know that the perception of disability needs to change in popular culture somehow. What can I, as one person, what do I have the time and energy to change? And one of my friends said to me, well, fashion's fairly low-hanging fruit. Why don't you start there? So that's how we started changing narrative around the Australian Fashion Week and how they were representing people with disability.
So have you started to break out of your country?
I have done some work with overseas clients.
Yeah.
It's at the moment a lot of the work I do is in Australia, but I was doing some work, mainly a lot of writing overseas, but I prefer to do stuff in Australia. And a lot of that is because the US and the UK specifically are doing fantastic work. There are some brilliant advocates over there, and they're already so far ahead of us. So I'm sitting here in Australia going, guys, we need to catch up. Look what the US are doing. Look what the UK are doing. Let's catch up. Let me help you with that. So we're using you guys as a case study.
That's awesome.
And then, so you're seeing it other
What
people
is
are
your,
trying
not
it.
that you can pick a favorite, because you should
go
never
ahead.
pick a favorite child project or anything like that. But if you had to pick a favorite thing that you've done so far, kind of lay out and say this was a really cool experience, or
There have been a few. There was one several years ago that I mentioned fashion, and I know that's not the aim was never to revolutionize. There's so many bigger problems in the disability sector than fashion.
right.
It really, really is. And it's, on the list of priorities for those of us with disabilities, that's probably down the bottom somewhere. But again, as a one-person show, like, right, the fashion industry, it's notoriously elitist. And, if an eyebrow is out of place, heaven forbid someone with a disability get included. But I approached them about getting disability included, and in 2022, for the first time ever, again using the US and the UK and many, many other countries as case studies, saying Australia is really behind, you guys look like idiots. Australia finally pulled its head out of its ass, and Australian First had an inclusive Australian Fashion Week, and not just as a one-off, but it's now consisted year after year, and we now have people with disabilities throughout that. And it's not, again, fashion's not on a list, high on our list of priorities, but fashion was also something that's fairly not. It's not going to stir the pot in terms of, politics or anything like that. And everybody does it. Everybody wears it. Everyone wears fashion. Everyone wears clothes. And it was nothing that anyone could really argue with or form really strong opinions about. And it was, by including us in that, it just saw us as part of the community and part of everyday conversations and things like that. So getting that started, and some really great things happened after that. The world's first adaptive fashion runway happened year after that. But there are a few things there's some research happening at Griffith University this year, which is really exciting. That's around disability employment, but can't really talk about that too much at the moment. But yeah, there's certainly more happening in fashion. The Australian Advertising Council does some really cool work around looking at disability employment, and again, that's some early stage research, but doing some more research again with Griffith University, trying to get more of that research underway. It's only in early stages at the moment, so hopefully doing a bit more nagging. And Media Diversity Australia, we released a disability reporting handbook. So that was the first of its kind in that it had been co-designed. So there had been some great resources previously written that had been released, that had been designed purely by people with disabilities or purely designed by journalists. But this one was co-designed, and the Human Rights Commission had the final sign-off on it, and all the journalists in Australia got a copy of that, and they're using it today. Recently we launched it with the media and advertising bit in it, and that was really important to me, having once been that non-disabled writer in advertising. I was like, shit, I really want to say the right thing and do the right thing, but what do I say and how do I say it? And launching at me from social media and publicly shaming me would not really have got me to change my way. Educating me and perhaps suggesting the right way to do it would have. So that's the approach we took in collaboration with disabilities.
Yeah, knowledge is power, right? And you always, what do they say? You get more honey with more flies with honey or something like that.
Than vinegar. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the fact that, you're not like shaming somebody makes a big difference to their ability to listen, because if it starts with a chastisement, most humans, their ears have now turned off and they are daydreaming of something else.
Yeah, well, if history has taught us anything, which, historically, disability advocates have done some amazing work around disability rights and everything like that. But when it came to disability representation in media, we had to look at historically how we were being represented. And it was all through a charity model of, please, sir, can I have some more?
Yeah.
Here's a poor little boy in a wheelchair looking sad out of window, cue sad music. And that was kind of it. And historically, that was just the same thing year after year after year. And it really wasn't getting us anywhere. And we, what's that Einstein quote? Is it Einstein or somebody else? Now I've forgotten. Do the same thing year after year, over and over and expect results. I've forgotten.
Definition of crazy, right?
That's the one, yeah. And we had to change what we were doing and how we approached that.
Yeah.
So, and we had to change our communication style as well. And I knew I'd spent enough time in boardrooms with decision makers, and the decision makers who were making decisions about what sort of content went on our screens. And so many of those people, really, really great, nice, intelligent people. And this is with no disrespect, but they were interested most about the figure at the bottom of a profit and loss statement.
Sure.
Right.
Bad thing. That's the job. So we had to communicate to those people in a language that appealed to them. So let's give them the facts and data about the bottom line and the profit and loss statements, all those sorts of things. Let's give them that data, because just talking to them about it's a nice thing to do, it helps people.
Right. Yeah.
They're not hearing that. I don't want to know about that. So we need to change our style of communication. So that's what we've been doing.
So in that area of communication, you're right in the thick of it. And even within our own community, there are different factions. I use that word a lot as to how we address certain situations. The language that we use, how we depict people. So are we coming to a consensus? Maybe that's the question to ask.
I think everyone chooses to use different language, which is completely fine. Yeah. I'm sure not everyone disagrees with me. Oh, not everyone agrees with me, sorry.
Yeah.
It's completely fine. And I don't agree with everyone either, which is, sorry, my dog in the background. No. Not everyone agrees.
Happy to have
we need healthy debate. Yeah. And when I say healthy debate, some of the debate I've seen online is, I don't agree with you, block, delete. And I'm like, well, that's
right. It's not getting us there anywhere, is it?
Yeah, I know. So I think it's really good to have these sort of open discussions and debate. But the disability community is not a monolith. We're not all going to agree on everything. We certainly don't all choose to use the same words. Some really great friends of mine use words I don't like, and I use words I don't like. So
we've been corrected a couple of times on this show.
Yeah. Doug and I say we always like that because people, give us what makes you comfortable, and we will
do our best to do it,
inform as we can.
Yeah, because it's ever changing and it's hard to keep up sometimes,
Yeah, I'm sure you got plenty of hate mail after I've been on this show.
We'll look forward to that. Tell us a little bit about your TED Talk.
Oh, sure. Yeah. What do you want to know?
Just
when did you start with? When did you do it? And then
that's a good question. Was it 22? I think it was 22.
Yeah, so fairly recently.
Oh, I get my dates so confused. I think I've given you some wrong dates already.
You're not graded. We aren't going to give you a grade.
3 years.
It's 22. So I was on the TED stage in 2018, I think it was, and did a 1-minute pitch around visibility of disability. And then they liked that, and then asked me back in 2022 to do the full talk. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun and so nerve-wracking. I was absolutely shitting myself.
So
yeah, I think I would have barfed for sure.
What were you trying to get across? What was the message that you were trying to get out?
That we need to look at the business case for disability inclusion, and I think some people mistook that for we need to commercialize disability inclusion, which is a shame because that was not the message at all. I'm not talking about commercializing disability inclusion. It's going back to exactly what I said before, which is that the messaging, the way we speak to certain decision makers, we need to include more disability in advertising. And the way to do that is to speak differently to people that we're already speaking to, or to speak differently to the decision makers. And some of them are interested in a profit and loss statement. And the way to do that is to give them the data and the facts. And so I didn't explain that very eloquently, but it was exactly what I said before when I was speaking to you, basically. What I've said in the last few minutes that I've been speaking with you, talking about a business case for disability inclusion and not just the charity model of, it's a nice thing to do, help all the disabled people. Of course it is.
Right.
Bloody go there.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. But I really, really wish every single chief marketing officer and every single advertiser in the world would go, oh, yes, we need more people with disabilities because it's such a good thing for society and it's just a really bloody good thing to do.
Yeah.
Let's do it tomorrow. But that's not reality. That's not what's happening. So you need to take a different tact.
Well, every business, every advertiser I'm sure you run into is, they're trying to identify their market and who they're trying to reach. And if there is a market out there that has the buying power that this one has, forget what the identity is. Forget that it's disability. If you just totally spoke numbers and said there are X amount of people and they have trillions of dollars to spend, wouldn't that get somebody to pay attention that had a product to sell?
Yeah, and I'm not talking about us all, going out and buying Bentleys tomorrow and driving around and sailing in yachts. I'm just talking about us going to the grocery store and buying frozen peas and everyday grocery items because that's what we do. We're everyday consumers who need clothes and food and all the stuff we need.
Yeah.
But marketers and advertisers forget about us because 20% market share, we're sitting there and we're being ignored. And first rule of advertising, one of the first rules, don't to get to target your demographic and include them in that advertising, speak to them, and we're not being spoken to. And one of the best ways to speak to us is simply to include us incidentally in your advertising. It doesn't mean you need to make a special quote unquote ad for us or anything like that, because some Nielsen data that came out showed that when people with disabilities were being included in advertising, statistically, it was only, ads for wheelchairs or incontinence products or other sort of disability style products. But that is changing.
Yeah. The other thing is the disability community is so diverse. And if you're doing a commercial, say for television, it's visual or a magazine, it's visual. So it's very easy to show a mobility disability. But have you figured out a way to address some of the other disabilities that may not be so visible?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I get this from advertisers and marketers as well. So I've previously written about it as to why we use visual disabilities in marketing and advertising. And in an advertisement, you have 30 seconds, roughly, a 30-second advertisement. And in that 30-second advertisement, you have to get so much across about the brand, the message and everything. And you also have to get across that, hey, we have a disabled person in this ad. You can't necessarily communicate, hey, this person is, I don't know, neurodivergent and they have this diagnosis and, but that's a bit of this and a bit of that. You can't get the complexities of a disability across. And if this audience is disabled, if your audience is disabled, they will know how much complexity goes into a non-disabled diagnosis. There's a lot there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like an arrow pops up and they say, like, here, let me label this real quick for 3.5 seconds. Read it fast. Yeah.
There you go. So that's why we often use visual cues, like a wheelchair or something like that. It's perhaps not ideal because as someone with
like an invisible disability, right? Yeah.
My invisible disability, my memory loss. Visible and invisible disabilities. I would love to see invisible disabilities get a lot more airtime than they do.
Yeah.
But as an advertiser, I can also see it from the other side of the coin. I completely understand why it is necessary to sometimes use those visual cues. So I'm seeing it pop up a lot more in advertising where they, maybe have a prosthetic leg or a little bit of a wheelchair or something else. But there's a lot of visual cues out there that they can use. It doesn't always have to be a wheelchair. But as an advertiser, I do see and I do understand why they do it. But as a disabled person, I do understand why it's important not to do it. Perhaps if it was maybe a 2-hour documentary, sure, go for your life, explain the diagnosis and the ADHD or whatever it is. Oh, we've got a 30-second commercial here. Or if you have a well-known person with a disability like Chloe Hayden here in Australia, who has autism, ADHD and other disabilities that are invisible, people know her and go, oh, it's Chloe, yeah, she's got autism. Then that's another way to do it.
Yeah. Do you feel like you take heat for it? If you depict, if you depict things that people, you're showing mobility disabilities and not the other ones, and you're not showing the diversity.
I think at this evolutionary stage, and when I say evolutionary stage, we're still in these early stages of working out what's going to work. People are going to take heat for things, and it's better to be doing something well. And by that, I mean collaborating with the disability community, making sure it's done respectfully, it's done consistently rather than just a one-off tokenistic thing. That's why I mean done well. Taking a little bit of heat for something, that doesn't mean being called out or cancelled. Not rather than, not using an invisible disability. I saw something recently I was watching USA Maths, of all things, not talking about advertising for a minute, but one of your contestants had ADHD, and there was a little bit more time to talk about it. And he's like, yeah, I've got ADHD. And because there's more time on that show, he could go into more detail about it and talk about it. Yeah. That's another way it can be included. It wasn't talked about much again, but there was no tantrum thrown or anything because they didn't include it or this or that or the other. But that's an example where a non-visible disability can be included.
What are some of the ways that your disabilities have had positive impacts on either your personal life or your professional life?
Okay, my physical disabilities, I love-hate relationship. And by that I mean there's no doubt that it was totally traumatic for my family because I was in a coma and completely off with the fairies the entire time for 2 months. I don't remember a thing. I've got amnesia from my stroke. They were awake for every single minute that I was on life support, not knowing if I'd be awake or alive every morning when they turned up to the hospital for 2 months. So I live with that guilt that I will never, ever be able to, I feel terrible basically. But the positive is I met my amazing husband because of what happened, and I get to do this incredible work that I love because of what happened. So I try and take positives from it because I can't change the past, and dwelling on that is just useless as far as I'm concerned because it is what it is, and think what you want about that. And
I'm sure your family has told you more times than you can count not to feel guilty.
Yeah.
Right? Yep.
I
never met them, but I'm guessing that they have said that to you.
Clearly it wasn't like, hey, let me just take over the show for the next while. I need a long nap. I don't think they're thinking of that.
My family are beautiful and they are just incredible. But I will always have that guilt. They were awake and every day for 2 months, and I was like, excuse me, I'm just going to have sleep. But they've been there for me every step of the way. But even though I've done some pretty cool stuff in this 20 years since then, I couldn't have done any of it without their support and my husband, who I've now been with for quite a while. So that's the pros and the cons of both.
Yeah. I've got one final question before I turn it over to Addie to ask our final question that we ask all of our guests. Just curious about what's on the horizon, what's in your future, what are you looking at to do or accomplish? Or
I'm doing some research at the moment with Griffith University, and I'm pretty excited about that. It's around disability employment and advertising. So getting stuck into that. Lots of reading and research papers and all that fun stuff.
Nice.
So,
well, good. Then that will that sets the table for Lisa Cox episode 2.
Yeah, right. coming sometime soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question that we ask guests we've been doing this recently. Doug has a question that we ask everybody because it's just interesting to find out how much diversity there is in all of our guests. So the question is, how long does it take you to put on pants, socks, and shoes?
Right. So I get dressed in bed every morning, and I a few minutes and have my clothes beside my bed, and that's because it's just so much easier to do it in bed. So it probably takes, let me think, maybe I just get into the same gym gear, my same gym gear every morning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
It's kind of coming down to 5 minutes is probably, we haven't done it, the math, but that's around our average. You know,
I think 5 minutes is the the average. I would say across all the interest.
Because I put a leg on as well.
Yeah. And we've had a few guests that do that too. Yeah.
Demery.
Well, and it's interesting because it spurs a conversation beyond just the time. And I never thought about it before I brought up the question in a wheelchair group, support group. And the answers I was getting were then the whole discussion was wild because, like you mentioned, you do it in bed. I do it in bed. But there were people like, I couldn't do it in bed. I have to do it in my chair. And I'm like, I've tried to get dressed in my chair. It's impossible. So
yeah, right.
The rare times I hate shopping, but the few times I go shopping now, I just will not try on pants.
There you go.
I'm like, nah, I'll buy it. I'll take it back if it doesn't fit.
Yeah, that's me too. Yeah.
We're the Take It Back Club. I'm always like, no, I'm not getting even dressed in here. I don't want to sit on that seat. I don't know what's been sitting on that seat. Like, ew. I once saw something about the bottom of your purse and how dirty it is after you take it in public, and that was the end of that.
Oh, and on that note,
right.
So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being our first guest outside the United States. That was awesome.
Yes. I want to bottle your accent. I love it.
Mm-hmm. So have a great rest of your day. We know it's morning now, right? In Australia.
Yes, thank you for joining me at this time. Evening for you guys. But
So it's Saturday morning. We're recording this on a Friday. Yeah.
And it's Friday night for us. You're ahead in time. That's still a cool concept that you see in the future.
Have a great weekend.
I will. Thanks, guys. You too when you get there.
Each week on Walk and Roll Live, we share honest and open stories of people living with a disability.
I think it's even worse now because, they give me a roller coaster to run around town in, and I basically am just trying to find the biggest curb to jump off
Yes.
of.
Right. You're like, I know I can return myself from hard things, so I'm going to.
Hey.
Join us weekly for another powerful episode. Walk and Roll Live, wherever you get your podcasts. Life Limitless. Subscribe now.
Conversation, just hearing about somebody who has been so triumphant and just stuck through it, all the stuff that was going on in life, and then taking what they loved and not losing that and transforming it into something that's super powerful and that they may not have thought of before because it wasn't their wheelhouse, and now they've turned it into their wheelhouse and their passion.
Yeah,
So,
it'll be interesting to
awesome.
see how that kind of evolves, and if she can accomplish, I'm sure, a lot of things that she wants to accomplish. It seems like it would be a couple of the questions I think alluded to that I had. It just seems like it's very difficult to navigate the space because there are people on either end of the spectrum. There are people that just whatever. I was asking some of the guys at the Adaptive Sports Fair, how do you feel about people that approach you and want to ask you about how you came into being a chair or whatever. I don't care. But I know people that appalls them that anybody would approach them and ask them that. That's against HIPAA laws, and they go off.
Yeah, go off.
Yeah.
But I think it's super cool how she is she knows both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very clear in the conversation with her that she can get it from an advertiser's perspective. That's kind of not as clued in, but she can also get it from lived experience. So she's a cool hybrid experience that's, obviously going to make huge dents, and sounds like she's making big dents in Australia,
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely have her back to catch up and see what her research has come up with and all of that. So we definitely will do that. And
how cool to get to do TED Talks.
I have to go track that down.
I was like, woohoo, we're special. We had a TED Talker.
Yeah, and I'll put that up on our website too, so you can check it out. I got to go hunt that down. Let us know if you'd like to be on the show, if you have any good ideas for a guest or even a topic, because we're going to try to do more topics this year. So, yeah, if you have a good idea for a topic, please let us know, and we'll track that down, see if we can do that. And again, if you're looking for resources, added a few more this week. Can't remember what they are now, but if you're looking for resources,
there are new ones.
There are new ones on there. And if you don't find what you're looking for, please let us know. And we'll do our best to track it down and get it up on the resource page. Next week, I'm going to try to get, I've got a word out to him, is the coach for the Los Angeles Chargers wheelchair basketball team.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so their season is coming, and they're going to start practicing soon. So I want to get the coach on and kind of get an idea of what that's all about, how he came to be a part of it, and all of that good stuff. So that's hopefully, fingers crossed, eyes crossed, toes crossed. Yeah, we'll get him on next week.
Nice.
All right. You have a good week. Good luck. You going back to the cabin? I keep calling it a cabin. I know.
It's okay. Going back to the spot in Blue Ridge, yes. Then get it cleaned out and meet up with some people and take care of some stuff up there. With work keeping me more at home, we can't go as frequently as we used to just pop up there. So, sometimes 2 hours is longer than 2 hours, depending on the amount of time you have free. So it'll be nice to share it with some other people and let them enjoy it too.
We'll just keep looking down the road to retirement when you can do that anytime you want.
I know, right? But money, as long as I have money.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the world runs on money.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
But what about this week for you?
What is this week? I don't know.
It's the last week of February.
It is this last week of February. Yeah, that's for sure. Just kind of more of the typical thing. I got some board meetings this week. We're doing a board retreat for one of the organizations that I volunteer with, and
fun.
All those things. Yeah, it's good information.
I can't believe we're almost into spring, guys. It's like almost March. Wasn't it just like Christmas? I don't know.
I got to thinking the other day, because it's going so fast. I'm like, before you know it, it's going to be Christmas.
Right? I mean, it shows you why you got to think farther out in shows. All of a sudden you're like, okay, well in April. And I'm like, oh my God, April's like 4 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
What?
Be here before you know it. All right. Well, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. I'm your host, Doug Vincent, with my co-host, Addie Rich, from the Agyar Professional Training Studio. This has been Walk and Roll Live. Disability Stories, Life Limitless.
Walk and roll life.